Most people like to believe that modern society is built on fairness, equality, and rational systems. We are told that status comes from merit, that influence comes from competence, and that positions of power are determined by objective measures. But if you observe human behavior carefully, you will notice something far older operating beneath the surface, something that predates modern institutions, politics, and even civilization itself: the invisible structure of social hierarchy. Long before laws, companies, or governments existed, human beings lived in small groups where survival depended on cooperation and coordination. In these environments, hierarchy was not an option, it was a necessity. Groups needed leaders, decision makers, and individuals who could organize collective action during danger or uncertainty. Over thousands of generations, the human brain adapted to recognize and navigate these structures instinctively. This is why even today, without anyone formally assigning roles, hierarchies begin to form in almost every group. In a workplace meeting, certain voices carry more weight. In a social circle, some people set the tone while others follow it. Even in casual gatherings, subtle signals determine who commands attention and who fades into the background. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is shaped by unconscious patterns inherited from our evolutionary past, and hierarchy is one of the most persistent of those patterns. The mind constantly scans for signals of status, competence, and authority, often without conscious awareness. These signals are rarely spoken directly. They appear in body language, tone of voice, eye contact, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. In other words, hierarchy is not only built through formal power, it is also built through perception. Imagine entering a room where several people are already talking. Within seconds, your brain begins evaluating the social landscape. Who seems confident? Who is being listened to? Who interrupts others without resistance? Who receives eye contact when they speak? This process happens automatically. It is part of the brain's ancient mechanism for understanding group dynamics, because knowing where you stand in the hierarchy once meant the difference between safety and conflict. But modern life has complicated this system. Today we live in environments where official authority and perceived authority do not always align. Someone may hold a high position in an organization, yet command little respect from those around them. Meanwhile, another individual with no formal title may influence the behavior of an entire group simply through presence and confidence. This gap between formal power and psychological power reveals something important. Hierarchy is not only about position, it is about perception and behavior. The person who remains composed when others become emotional often appears more stable. The person who listens carefully before speaking appears more thoughtful. The person who does not rush to seek approval often appears more self-assured. These signals shape how others position themselves in relation to that individual, and gradually a hierarchy emerges. But hierarchy does not only create leaders, it also creates roles. In many groups, one person becomes the decision maker. Another becomes the mediator who resolves conflicts. Someone else becomes the challenger who questions ideas. Others become observers who rarely influence the direction of discussion. These roles are rarely assigned. They develop organically through repeated interactions. The human mind is remarkably skilled at detecting patterns of influence. Once a pattern is established, people begin responding to it automatically. If someone consistently demonstrates confidence and clarity, others begin deferring to their opinions. If someone frequently hesitates or seeks approval, their influence gradually decreases. Over time, these behavioral patterns solidify into social positions that feel natural, even though they were never formally decided. This process can be observed in almost any environment. In schools, certain students naturally become informal leaders of their groups. In companies, some employees shape the direction of projects despite not being managers. Even in friendships, someone often becomes the center of gravity around which others organize their decisions. The structure may remain invisible, but its effects are everywhere. Jung described this dynamic through the concept of archetypal patterns that shape human interaction. Certain individuals unconsciously adopt the role of the leader, the strategist, the protector, or the challenger. Others move into supportive roles that stabilize the group structure. These patterns are not fixed. They shift depending on context and experience. But the underlying principle remains constant. Human groups instinctively organize themselves into hierarchies. The question is not whether hierarchy exists. The question is how individuals navigate it. Some people move through social structures almost unconsciously. They react to authority signals without understanding why. They defer to confident personalities even when those individuals lack competence. They hesitate to express ideas when they perceive someone else as dominant in the group. Others, however, become aware of these patterns and learn to observe them more consciously. They begin noticing how influence moves through a conversation. They recognize the difference between someone who speaks loudly and someone who speaks with clarity. They observe how emotional stability often carries more weight than aggressive behavior. This awareness changes the way they interact with others. Instead of reacting automatically to perceived status, they evaluate behavior more carefully. Because one of the most surprising truths about hierarchy is that it is constantly renegotiated. Every interaction reinforces or challenges the positions that people occupy. When someone consistently demonstrates calm confidence, their influence grows. When someone repeatedly reacts emotionally or seeks validation, their position becomes less stable. These shifts rarely happen dramatically. They occur slowly through countless small interactions. A thoughtful comment that changes the direction of a conversation, a calm response during a tense moment, a refusal to participate in unnecessary conflict. Each of these moments subtly alters how others perceive you within the social structure. But there is also a danger in misunderstanding hierarchy. Some people believe that gaining influence requires dominance, aggression, or manipulation. They attempt to control conversations, interrupt others, or impose their opinions forcefully. In the short term, this behavior may create the illusion of power, but over time, it often generates resistance. Because genuine authority rarely comes from force, it emerges from consistency, competence, and emotional stability. The individuals who naturally rise in social hierarchies are often those who appear most comfortable within themselves. They do not chase approval. They do not compete for attention. They contribute when necessary and remain silent when observation is more valuable than reaction. This balance between presence and restraint creates a form of psychological gravity. Others begin orienting themselves around that person without consciously realizing it. Conversations shift when they speak. Decisions carry more weight when they offer input. Their behavior sets the tone for the group, not because they demanded authority, but because others perceive stability in their presence. And stability is one of the most valued traits in any hierarchy. In uncertain situations, people instinctively gravitate toward individuals who appear composed and decisive. This is why emotional self-control often influences social structures more than intelligence or charisma alone. The ability to remain calm when others react emotionally signals reliability. It suggests that this person can handle pressure without losing clarity. Over time, these signals accumulate, and slowly, almost invisibly, the structure of the group reorganizes around them. What began as subtle behavioral cues becomes an established position within the social hierarchy. But perhaps the most important insight about hierarchy is that awareness itself changes how you participate in it. When you understand that influence is shaped by behavior rather than simply assigned by titles, you begin paying attention to the signals you send to others. You notice when you rush to justify yourself, when you seek approval before expressing your opinion, when you react emotionally to minor disagreements. And once you see these patterns, you can start changing them. Not through manipulation or performance, but through internal stability. Because the most powerful position in any hierarchy is not the one that dominates others. It is the one that remains grounded regardless of external pressure. The person who can observe the dynamics of the group without becoming lost inside them. The one who understands that influence does not come from controlling every interaction, but from mastering one's own reactions. And when someone reaches that level of awareness, something interesting begins to happen. They stop chasing status, yet their presence gradually begins to shape the environment around them. Not through force, but through clarity. Because in every human group, consciously or unconsciously, people are always searching for the same thing: stability. And the individual who embodies that stability often becomes the center of the hierarchy without ever asking for the position. Stay sharp.